Hey there. Welcome to the Eurostep Podcast Network post Game 7 podcast. The Milwaukee Bucks fall in Boston in pretty brutal fashion. 109-81, Game 7. The Bucks now fall to 0-4 against Boston all time in Game 7. So 0-3. I think it's 0-4. Yeah. And it was really bad for the most part. After a great start, an okay first half, pretty much the worst second half you could draw up for Milwaukee. I am Ty Windisch of the Eurostep, joined as always by the lovely Rohan Katti, also of the Eurostep, and the delightful Adam McGee of the Win in 6 podcast. Fellas, for the last time in the 2021-2022 Bucks run, how's it going?
I thought you were going to say ever. I was like, wow, this is news to me.
No.
Are we done with the pod, or are you just never asking how we're doing again?
Brewers are in full swing. We got plenty of pods coming in GSPN, even if they're not on this feed.
Shout out Cruising for a Bruising.
Boom.
Doing, I'm surprisingly okay.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
Fine. There's more important things to worry about in life. I'm taking a world view here, like in the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad. What does get me down, Ty, though? Gets me down that not everyone listening is subscribed and might stop listening now that the Buck season is over. But don't you worry, we're gonna have plenty of off-season content coming. So make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing better for seeing both of you guys. That's the answer to it.
That's cute.
I guess it is, isn't it? It really is. It helps that the second half was as ugly as it was because we all had a lot of time to come to terms with it. Is it a good thing? Will we look at it as a good thing going forward? No, but we're not coming in here off like a gut punch at the buzzer, which I don't think any of us would be able to withstand. We probably wouldn't be recording the pod just yet if that was the case. Look, it's pretty devastating. It's not how you want the season to end, any season. It's not how you want a title defense to end, but that's how it is. That's how the NBA is. There's lots of reasons we'll get into why it happened, reasons within the Bucks' control, reasons that are outside their control. But this is the NBA, and the Celtics, whole credit to them, really, really good, and they delivered in Game 7. Weird game. Like, I don't know how much we can even dive into the game in terms of numbers or anything the way we usually would, because it ceased being a normal game of any structure in the second half. But Celtics had to go and deliver, and the Celtics delivered during the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I think the most important, well, I don't want to say most important. There's a lot that's important, and we'll get into all of it. But I think what really swung it to being wide open is the Bucks daring Grant Williams to shoot. Worked out really well early and really, really poorly late. And that swing, and I will say, I know I've made fun of the credit to or hats off to or whatever, but Grant Williams like that, I was going to tweet at one point, like, I would rather dive into a pit of vipers than be Grant right now. Because I think it is really hard at home in a Game 7. They're leaving you wide open. You start off pretty cold. I think that's a really tough thing to get out of, and he did, and it changed everything. I mean, the Bucks had no offense outside of Giannis and Brook, and clearly with Grant missing, Blood was going to lean into that and lean into playing Brook more and taking away the paint and forcing him to shoot. And Derek White couldn't make anything. I think he did finish 0 for 7, but Grant Williams did, and I think that is really what took it from Boston winning but not dominating to the Celtics absolutely blowing the doors off the Bucks in the second half, coupled with the problem that's been a problem all series. Milwaukee's offense is just so lackluster and bad outside of Giannis, and Khris is, of course, out, and that's a huge factor. It would have made a huge difference, especially earlier. I don't think it should tank Milwaukee's offense as much as it did in this series. Like, the Bucks, we know, are not a great offensive team even with Khris in the playoffs. They haven't always been. They haven't usually been. But this was just brutal. There was no ability for even Giannis in the second half wasn't able to execute because the Celtics built that barrier and just no Bucks could really do anything about it. So just a really hard way. I think, you said it would have been harder in the moment to deal with like losing on a last second shot. I don't know. I would have preferred that. I would have preferred feeling like
it would
they
be
had a
harder in the
shot.
moment, for
Yeah.
sure, but it's better in the long run too.
Yeah. I mean, we all know that I'm the last one to give up, but I was tweeting about, how the Bucks should approach the offseason while not yet totally conceding in the third quarter of this game. And I kind of got a little sucked in at some points, but it's just really, really tough 24 minutes of basketball.
Completely.
Tough
I mean,
indeed.
you're right on Khris in that they should still be better in the series. They should particularly be better in this game without him. But you could see the moment where it was just crying out for Khris Middleton. It was crying out for a cool head, a professional scorer, someone who could bite him some minutes. Giannis was so good to start this game, and he clearly gassed, and that's a 7-game series. That's the entire season. That could go back to, a shorter than usual turnaround from going later into the year at the season, winning a championship, coming back doing all again. Whatever it was, he was gassed. And they didn't have someone capable of doing what they needed to survive those minutes. So Giannis had to keep pressing. That's my biggest disappointment. And I guess we'll get into individual players, and I do think a lot of answers lie there. And in some ways, they lie in places which are kind of the easiest to point to and say, okay, well, they've got to look at that. But they're also some of the toughest to rectify for the Bucks at this point. But the biggest disappointment for me was how quickly the Bucks allowed themselves to become desperate, because that's what the second half was. It was a complete breakdown. It's not their offense was good, but it was a complete breakdown of any semblance of offense. And that just fueled the Celtics offense. That's how the Celtics get to run away. It's because the Bucks just lost control. It was really, really desperate stuff. You're missing shots the Celtics are pushing. And then once they started making trees with real regularity, I don't know what you can do. Peyton Pritchard looked ridiculous. And we know he's not that good, but if you're going to allow him to be, if you're going to allow the Celtics to completely dominate the second half the way they did, that's what's going to happen. We've seen the Bucks do that to teams before. This is a really ugly case of it. But to me, that was my disappointment, was they just didn't hold it together. I think we all would have liked to see more fight, and maybe that is them getting it close. But I would have liked to see the pride of they kind of kept themselves together. They managed to keep the game tight. That doesn't mean that it's like a 6-point game. But that's if it's a 15-point game, manage to keep it there and give yourself a chance at one of those runs where it got really kind of frantic and desperation stuff, in a hurry. And that was pretty disappointing. And I think outside of Tree Bucks, there was not a lot of good. And the Tree guys who delivered, there was no revelations in terms of what we saw from them. It's we already know that they're players who can step up in these moments, but just really, really tough. And the fact that, to me, they kind of lost their heads was very, very disappointing, because that's the thing. As champs, as a team who's been around the block, with Khris, without Khris, they thrive on giving themselves a chance on making it tough, and they didn't do that in the second half.
Who are the 3 players? I know 2 of them.
Giannis, Drew, and Brooke.
Yeah. Oh, what? Are you tonight or the series?
Tonight.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Pat for the series for sure.
Yeah, I'm talking about today. I'm talking about this game.
Yeah. But even the thing with Brooke, I think they still got smoked in his. I mean, everyone obviously got smoked.
There's no.
There's no. But I mean that they just couldn't hold up, but they didn't have a choice. Is the problem? I mean, he gave it everything he had, but the math just was not going to work out there.
But they didn't really in the end, they got smoked in his minutes because they got smoked in everyone's minutes, and he was playing 37 minutes today because he's one of their better players. He's one of the only ones who gets going. Minus 20, just like Giannis.
Yeah.
The guys who they got smoked in their minutes are guys who've been talking about them getting smoked in their minutes throughout the series. That's on the players themselves. It's also on Bud. Bobby Grayson minutes together, just a complete train wreck. Just complete and utter train wreck. Grayson actually fought a lot better than he has in other games in this series. His first half, he was playable. he wasn't doing all the stuff that he's supposed to do, but he was finding a way that he wasn't like absolutely tearing the Bucks down from the inside.
It was the Bobby game. It was the Bobby game earlier this series where it's like, oh, he's actually hanging on the other end, but does it matter if you're 0 for 6?
No,
Not really.
Your offense is, yeah.
Like West is 1 for 5. No one, I think, realistically, and he only plays 21 minutes. Whatever, they wanted offense, but you can live with that kind of thing from West because he's had a pretty good offensive series overall, and 2, we know what he's doing defensively. I didn't like that they went away from West on Tatum. I think Drew on Jalen makes more sense. Also, I just don't like the toggle of giving Drew an even harder assignment, considering we already know he struggles to keep his offense up when he's expending that much energy defensively. But you can't, like, West is a big plus defensively. Grayson fought really hard to be like a neutral defensively. You can't trade that for having 0 offense, especially when there's so many guys who are clearly more inclined to be defensive players than offensive players in this game already.
Man, Grayson looked broken offensively.
Just a lot of the shots he took were like chuck in. He got really good looks near the rim a couple of times and just could not put him down. Same for Bobby, honestly, who does finish 4 for 9, 2 for 3 from deep, carries his day. He also continues to get into the paint.
That's half of the Bucks threes.
Yeah.
He was terrible.
He could not score in the.
It really flatters
offensively. It was bad. And then I think we probably should have seen this coming. Pat had to cool off. It really stinks that he cooled off to that extent. But that's why you need to win Game 6. Giannis was better in Game 6. Pat was better in Game 6. It's at home. You really needed to come away with that one. That was what I kept thinking. And no, I'm not going to do maybe they should have tried Game 82. Shut up. They had a home court game to win. If they didn't win Game 6, why do you think they would win Game 7 at Fiserv? Either way.
It's also, do we think the crowd is the reason why it happens? Do we think them being on the road? I don't think so.
Especially,
we can't say it for certain, so I guess there's no point even going there. You're right. They had a home game to win the series.
Yeah,
so that's really what matters in that. But yeah, look, that's going to go on forever, and we're going to hear about that like we heard about KD's
and the Dante. I think we're going to get a lot more Dante. If only they had Dante.
Oh my god!
What if Dante was the one who was 0 for 6? How would that have swung the series?
I'm not.
Dante would have gone
funny.
0 for 15.
When you see that talking point, it's someone who doesn't know anything about the Bucks. They're just not paying attention to the Bucks. Particularly now going into this offense, what's worth more than what Dante would have been able to bring in is the picks they got in exchange, because they're going to have to find some things, whether it isn't the draft or it's making deals. Like, those picks have value. Dante was expiring. Nobody wanted him back. I don't really have any massive belief that he'll be able to do much. The ways that, is he a better defender than Grayson? Sure, he's a better defender than Grayson. But the ways in which the Celtics were working Grayson, or even say working George Hill at times, you'd have the same problem with Dante. So you can discount that one. That's one I'll just kind of glide by between now and the rest of time, is the idea that trading Dante was a bad idea.
George Hill hitting negative threes over the last 4 games is really sending me. -1 threes.
What?
He committed an offensive foul to take away a Grayson Allen 3-pointer in this game. He made -1 threes over the last 4 games.
He was just running.
He was just
running better.
Well, I just wouldn't run near Grant Williams. That's something I've learned in the series. But
I wouldn't put that foul really on him.
Well, he did it.
Did he though?
Yes.
It wasn't an offensive foul. It shouldn't have been. But
no, it shouldn't.
Beside the point. That doesn't matter.
And it takes him down to 0 for this series. -1 over the last 4 games. You just can't. Like if you look at the total offensive numbers, it's Pat, George Hill, and Javon Carter, who made 2 of 4 threes in the series. Javon in about half the minutes of Hill. And then a bunch of guys who shot 33% or less from deep. And we just know how that goes when a team is playing Giannis. If you can't make them pay when they send that help, it's not going to go well. And, the Bucks, credit to them. They got to 7 games. It's great. I know a lot of people want to hang the got to 7 games in the second round without Khris Middleton participation banner. But it's not good enough.
I don't think anyone wants to hang that banner tag.
Seems like a pretty wordy banner.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't go with it personally, but some of my replies are on different energy.
I don't know. Luxury tax savings seems like a little less wordy to handle.
I will say, I mean, they went with mathematically Grayson and Hill over PJ, more or less, right? And that was an awful decision that we all thought would be a better decision and that would age well. But you would have much rather had PJ than any of Bobby, any two for sure, maybe even all three of Bobby, Hill, and Grayson.
The thing with PJ and not all of that. I mean, obviously, if they did keep PJ, the Grayson trade becomes more complicated. But generally, you could have had PJ and a lot of the decisions they made anyway. It's just at a very significant cost.
Yes, also that.
We're going to get into, obviously, the territory there when people start to tell me how much it is and be like, well, you can't expect anyone. It's like, well, I don't buy NBA teams because I can't afford it. But if you're buying an NBA team and you want to win, like there are decisions that you're going to make that, guess what? They're going to cost you a lot of money.
Wait, Adam, you can't afford an NBA team?
I absolutely cannot.
Make sure you subscribe.
Can you, Rohan?
Wherever you're listening. Help us buy the
Hit up
Milwaukee Bucks.
gspnstore.com and get active so we can buy the Bucks, please.
This is why we needed to monetize the YouTube channel.
Yeah. We're well on our way. We're not monetizing yet, so but come back, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Soon we will be, and the $5 a month we make from YouTube it's going to add up. And
one of these days,
in 13,000 lifetimes, I think we'll hit $1 billion. But
then we'll be like a third of the way there.
The good thing, right, with that whole conversation that I'm sure all of us are dying to have is we're going to get to have it again. And the owners are going to have to go through that same situation, but in a worse spot where you're not the champions. So the decisions are harder. If you pay up now, you're paying up for a team that lost this year. And if you don't pay up, you're actively making a team that lost worse. So that whole conversation is going to get much worse for everyone. We're going to be having it, I'm sure. And it's going to get tougher for the owners. And they might just do the same thing, but you're in a tougher spot because you did it last year and you do it again. It's like, if you're going to pay it, you pay, and you pay the highest price, and you go and you win the championships, and you at least have that to show for it. But they paid quite a bit of tax this year anyway. And they have a second round exit.
Well,
does that happen with Khris Middleton there? No, but that's beside the point. This is what happens. It's the NBA.
Yeah.
And part of the reason you get as many good guys in your roster as possible is for the possibility that injury strikes.
Yeah. And that's why I say, instead of getting into the whole they should have paid everyone thing, like clearly there were constraints that Horst had to operate within. And again, I think at the time we liked most of the decisions. We were also wrong. The decisions that John Horst made throughout the season were not good enough. Rodney Hood and Shemi Ojeleye, a.k.a. number 37, were terrible and couldn't play.
Don't you diss Big Rod like that.
And credit...
I miss Big Rod.
You were the one who was saying they didn't need him last game. I said maybe.
No, they did not.
Ty, don't hold me accountable for anything I ever said.
Okay, well, fair. That sounds fair. You're just a podcaster. I shouldn't expect you to stand by the words. I'll get blamed for him anyway. Grayson, not a 16-game player. Bobby Portis.
He's a 4-game player.
Yeah.
You could say he's not a 12-game player. How about that? Because the first round's always a joke.
Yeah, it's true. It's very Forbesian. Portis is tough because we all love Bobby, and I think he made strides defensively, but they could not afford him shooting sub 40% from the field, sub 23% from deep, and contributing 69 total points across 70 games.
Nice.
They just couldn't afford it. He was offense. He had to be that guy. I mean, he starts all year. He's been an offensive focal point. The Bucks absolutely could not afford him. And Grayson, who scored 35 total points in 7 games and shot 31, 20, 57 splits. And Wes Matthews, who, 33 splits, pretty much expected there. And Brooke, who just wasn't able to play as much, and Pat to get cold at the wrong time. Drew to do playoff Drew stuff, which is to say 36-30 splits. Although 95% from free throw. It's really impressive for Drew, but the offense just not good enough. Khris helps a ton, but you can't have everyone fall to shit, excuse me, that quickly without him and that poorly. Like there was nothing around Giannis far too often.
The Bobby point is interesting. I looked up because we've been talking about it and I decided, you know what, I better finally look it up. And I looked it up before I had 7 games worth of stats in the series because that game 7 is going to skew all the numbers to something that just doesn't tell us anything anymore. So I looked up 2-man lineups. I know the flaws here, but just as something there for us as an indicator. So 2-man lineups, 3 Bucks lineups that have played over 50 minutes in the series, 3 2-man pairs. The worst, there's obviously more than that, but these are the 3 worst, okay? I worded that terribly. The worst, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, minus 29.2 in 81 minutes. Next, Bobby and Brooke, 59 minutes, minus 24.1. Then Bobby and Grayson, minus 22.9. Bobby and Grayson as kind of mainstays across that is a problem. It's a problem we're all aware of. Like, we know the issues. And yeah, it's a good point when you compared Grayson today and Grayson the first half with the Bobby game from a while back, because it's kind of the spot both of them are in. It's like, even if their defense is at a point where it's like, the defense isn't that bad, their sole job with the Bucks is to produce offense. And if you're not doing that at a really high level, if you can't be the player having like the Grant Williams game or the Al Horford game from earlier in the series, then it's not going to work. Like, because as opposed to those guys on the Boston roster, that's what Bobby and Grayson are here for. Like, they're here purely for that. In theory, Khris going out gave them more opportunity to do the things they're good at. And they kind of fell flat on their face. And ultimately, in watching this game and I'm watching Brooke in the first half, I started thinking, like, should Brooke just have played more in this series and they actually tried to utilize him like they did in the first half? Try to feature him, try to work mismatches, because there were easy points there that they were giving up all along. Ultimately, you know what? It doesn't matter. But it brings us back to a spot where center is a problem position for the Bucks because Brooke is still like everything for them. Bobby, that's a tough one. Bobby in the front court, I still feel pretty uncomfortable about it. That's a big question coming up. But ultimately, like with Brooke's age as well, if we want to map out the Bucks as continuing to contend in the years to come, which in lots of ways they are set up to do, the biggest concern, the thing that could sink them year in, year out, is Brooke getting older, and whether it's Bobby still there or Bobby's gone, you know, what do you have? What are your options there? Because that was a real problem in this series against a team like Boston. It's going to continue to happen in the years to come too. You
didn't talk about the inevitable Serge extension.
There's still people saying, why isn't Serge playing? And I don't know what else people needed to see from Serge to answer that question.
He'd have taken a lot of shots. That's all we can say based on these
playoffs. Could have been offense. He will take some shots.
The issue is, I mean, Brooke shoots 48% from the field this series and, you know, makes an impact on the boards, everything else. The Bucks got blitzed. I mean, he has the worst by far, plus minus. And I know it's noisy over a 7-game sample, but I do think in a playoff series, it does give you some context of trends. And, you know, the next 2 worst are a tie between Grayson and Drew. I think for Drew, he's always playing the non-Giannis minutes. The non-Giannis minutes always went so bad. Grayson, we've talked about a lot. Brooke, there's just too many threes. The Celtics were able to hit their threes. The Celtics had role players who took advantage of the space. The Bucks didn't. I mean, we talked after game 1, which feels an eternity ago, that the Bucks had better depth, and they didn't. After that point, really, for almost the entire series, they did not. And outside of, you know, this game, you could argue, game 6 was very close, probably edged Tatum. But even if Giannis is better than Tatum, he's not going to be better enough to make up for the massive gulf at almost every other spot for a lot of this series. Like, Peyton Pritchard scored 14 points before this game was over.
Peyton Pritchard made as many threes as the entire Bucks team did tonight.
In 17 minutes. It's like the Bucks getting that production from a bench guy outside of the Pat game in game 6 just never really happened. They never had it. And, you know, the Celtics got that from Pritchard, plus 10 for 22, 27 points from Grant Williams. Imagine if Bobby Portis had 27 at any point in this series. That would have felt like an auto win with the way the defense played for a lot when they weren't giving up all the threes and the way Giannis played. They just never had it. That ended up being it.
Yep, it really did.
Can I put something out there which is kind of interesting when we think of it now? Because when you run through, we did. We talked before the series. We talked after game one about the Bucks having better depth. The Bucks had more depth. It just turned out to be not very useful. And now if we take like a 3-4 year cycle for the Bucks, the years when the Bucks have more depth and it looks like they're deep do not work well for them. I think there's one reason that's obvious, which is you give Bud more options, and sometimes that's a dangerous thing. But it is interesting also to look at the Celtics. Like the Celtics in this series and the Celtics going forward now, their rotation is not dissimilar to where the Bucks were at last year in that it just has to be tight. And as a result, there's just not many empty minutes ever, because you're only playing guys that can play, that have to play. I'm still like that. No disrespect. He's in the conference finals. I wish Bucks players are. Malik Fitz, like when he came on again, I'm like, who's Malik Fitz? Who's Juwan Morgan? Like, but you know what? That's the way the Bucks roster was built last year when people were seeing like Sam Merrill. I'm sure that's the response they were having.
Axel Tupan.
Yeah, I think that's something that I don't know. It's maybe a little bit different to how we conventionally think of roster construction, but coming into the off season, and particularly when it's all going to be about the Bucks tax bill and the constraints they're under in terms of cost, is it even prudent for them to be spending like big beyond 6-7 guys? Because I don't know, is that how teams are winning anymore? It doesn't really feel like it, because the best teams are the most hardened teams. They're just going to run deeper with their minutes for their best players. And all of a sudden, like when you ran through that there, Ty, it reminds me of being like, oh, well, we've got Nikola Mirotic and we've got, it's just another version of that. It's another version.
Why'd you say that name?
But that's what it is. It's like you go into it and you're like, oh, there's 5 players who could come off the bench and play in the playoffs here. And no, there's not. And there should really be 2 when it comes down to it. You find that out too late and the series is over.
What it comes down to in the end is everyone they prioritized spending money on this offseason did not come through. And, whether that's they had too many guys. I mean, the issue is, they couldn't have consolidated it that much more. Outside of keeping PJ, which again, I think he obviously would have helped a great deal. He would have not knocked down the shots they needed knocked down. That's the one thing he would. Well, first half of this regular season, maybe. But having that switchable, being able to go Giannis at the 5 and actually having 4 other guys who you trust to switch with Khris out would have been massive. I think that's where the difference would have been felt the most with him. But, they prioritized Grayson Allen, Bobby Portis, and George Hill. And it's just 0 for 3, and it's really hard to overcome that. There are other free agency signings, the bottom of the barrel ones that we've seen sometimes pay off for them didn't.
Matthews.
Yes, I was thinking during the actual offseason, they got super lucky. Imagine how this would have gone if they never signed Wes, or if somebody else had thought to. This would have been horrible. I guess maybe Javon would have actually had to play. I think helps a little bit. It wouldn't have made up for not having West, though, and that defense on Tatum throughout the series.
Who knows? It's all butterfly effect, right? You can't really predict what's going to happen based on prior outcomes. You just have to proceed going forward. Not to have our statistical discussions that we've had in the past.
Here's a stat.
I like stats.
The Bucks shooting 27.9% from 3 this series was bad.
Yeah, it's not a great stat.
That's my stat.
I hate stats.
I pulled out the deep stat bag for this one.
Yeah, what did they get outscored by? Like 180 points from 3 or something ridiculous?
Something like that, yeah. And I do think Bud leaned too far into that defense. This was a really bad Bud series. But I don't have the energy to yell about it because I don't. I guess I shouldn't say that. I probably still would yell about it. But
sounds like I've always got some energy to yell.
Well, here's the issue. I think Game 6, I think, was winnable if they had played smarter. And like, I don't have the energy to yell about Game 7 because they just got their asses kicked, and I don't think there was an adjustment that matters. Like, I don't think if Javon plays Hills 12 minutes or whatever, do I think that swings this game? No, I don't. But maybe it swings one of the previous games, so that's what stinks. And no, I'm not doing the fire Bud thing. It's ridiculous.
No, it's completely stupid.
The bigger story is that guys just didn't play well enough. I don't think Bud had a good series. I also do not think he was close to their biggest problem this series. Bud is not drawing up the miss all your shots plays from the huddle.
I don't know. You don't know that. We don't know the inside
true.
tricks.
Classic rope-a-dope.
He could be, what is the term, slobber knocker? I don't even know what that means.
You're on board with it now?
No.
This was not a slobber knocker. This was a one-sided slobber knocker. All the slobber was on the Milwaukee side.
It was the book slobber all over the floor. That's what I'd keep
going.
That's why it was so wet. Yeah.
Whoa. So are the Celtics the knocker then? Like,
you just take this well-known saying in a completely different.
It's not
direction.
a well-known saying. I had multiple people text me saying, "What on earth is that saying?"
All these Gen Zers.
This is it. People don't watch boxing anymore.
Unaware of the joy of a good slobber knocker.
I think they're aware of that.
God.
I'm gonna move it on to something else. On the strategy, which I guess leads to Grant Williams taking 18 trees in Game 7.
Yeah, it's bad. I think it's a little much.
It is, but I think your point about the previous games is valid because I'll stick with what I feared from the beginning and what I've said all along, which is you don't lose this series because of Grant Williams doing that or Al Horford doing that. You lost because of what Jason Tatum managed to do to you in the games in between. Jason Tatum is just absolutely unbelievable. Some of the shot making, like it is truly, it is KD-esque. Yeah. There's no one else that can do that. But that's when in games 4, 5, and 6. It was game 4 when he started to kind of up his volume, become more efficient. Losing control on that, losing the handle on that's part of the problem. And that's when your other strategy, you can't allow the other guys to have those shots when you don't have the ability to really kind of restrict what Jason Tatum's doing anymore.
Yeah,
and that's where that falls apart.
That's why I did not have hope in the second half, because you can't come back. You can't ever expect to come back on a player who can do that from double digits. It's just too hard. We saw he got comfortable in this series, and you can go on a nice little 5-0 run. The Bucks could not do that in the second half of this game because they couldn't hit the rim at all. Giannis just started missing layups, and that's really what I was like, oh, they're going to go out sad. It's okay, it's over. But like, if they make 3 great plays, Tatum's going to come down and hit a couple threes, and it just doesn't matter. And you just can't make a comeback like against a guy like that in a team like Boston. So that's why I really thought they had to go into the fourth quarter either basically tied or in the lead to be able to win, and they very clearly did not do that.
Can we talk a little bit about the first half and I guess where they were at halftime? Because I felt right up until, 0.9 seconds left in the first half.
Oh, God.
I thought it was an excellent first half, and it was going to be bad that they were down by 2 points, and it was really bad when they were down by 5, because it felt like they played really well and it was going the way they wanted to. It was a gut punch. That's the only boxing terminology I'll use with that one. But they didn't respond at all. Like my one thought at halftime was, that's a really painful one, and now it's 5 points and you're on the road and none of this is ideal. You've got to come out and be the ones to kind of hit back first. You've got to be the ones to show a response. And they did the complete opposite. They folded right out of the gate in the third quarter. But that's the thing that, to me, I find really tough, because this is an all-time disastrous Game 7 where they were actually very good in the first quarter. I think still kind of solid, although they let it go. They lost the second quarter pretty comfortably. Overall, it felt like they still had some element of control in the game, and then they just were a no-show for the second half. Like, that's the thing that will probably get lost in it, is even more difficult to unpack. But again, that's where the disappointment comes. The fact that, okay, the call went against you. It's a 5-point deficit. It probably shouldn't be. you certainly don't feel like that's what was deserved at that point. To come out and just show nothing in response to that, though, is brutal.
Yeah.
It's been a long year. It's been a long series.
No, yeah.
Celtics had a lot more juice.
I thought the first quarter was great because Giannis was able to play make and guys were able to do something with the looks. The second quarter, it tightened up, and I started to feel like it's going to be hopefully really close unless the Bucks can heat up, and they didn't, and it wasn't close because Boston then got red hot from there, and they really rode the momentum of Smart, doing Marcus Smart stuff, finally getting that shooting foul he thought he was owed. But I figured eventually they'd have to go away from Brook because they were just giving up so much. It was so bold the way they approached it, and I thought it was like that's the kind of thing. Yeah, maybe you can steal a quarter and a half, but then you should probably just match Brook with Tice and Time Lord if he plays. He didn't. Certainly was the right call, I think, for Boston because they're going to need him a lot more against Miami, and he was not giving that much to them against the Bucks. But the combo of the Brook defense no longer working at all, and the Bucks offense falling off of a cliff, that was just always going to be killer. The fact that the really disheartening, and there's so many disheartening parts, but the really disheartening part about the third quarter is the Celtics barely had Jason Tatum, who picked up his fourth foul very early, and it's like it's scripted to go on a run. Like he plays for 4 minutes of that quarter, and the Celtics win by 10 anyway, with Giannis playing the whole quarter. I mean, if you can't win the 8 Giannis no Tatum minutes, that's a wrap. That's going to be that, and the Bucks just couldn't do it.
I know I said it in our group chat during the game, though, and this is not me putting any value as in good calls, bad calls. The third quarter became a ref show.
Yeah.
And the Bucks fell behind, and then the game is like, it was beyond stop-start. That was a really, really long third quarter. And that favors the team who's in front and has kind of rapidly built a pretty significant lead. The Bucks needed some flow to that game, so if they could get some stops, that they could then go off and have a run of their own and get back into it. And it wasn't there in the third quarter. And then I think ultimately that fuels kind of the desperation more and more. And I mean, also for the Grant Williams and then later Pritchard, like the Brook defense, when that falls apart, it's when the other guys, again, it was when Tatum, before he came into foul trouble, it's like when those guys start making their shots and then the lead builds for the Celtics, there's less pressure on all of those shots. Because early in the game, Grant Williams did not like that he was being dared to shoot and left wide open. But you know what? Those shots are a lot easier when you're up 12. It's like the pressure in a game 7 on them isn't as great. You don't feel like everyone's looking at you like you're being singled out as the weak point. So that's the thing that when it goes against you, I really think the Bucks need to switch that approach up right there and then, because you weren't going to get back into the game by conceding endless open trees to Grant Williams or to other players then as they just broke down. Like, again, it's bad decision making. The adjustment wasn't there, and that's on Bud. That's also on the players. There just wasn't, I don't know, there wasn't someone rallying them together. There wasn't someone bringing the fire that I guess PJ brought last year. There wasn't the kind of the strong voice. Like Giannis was doing his best to lead in the way that Giannis does, which is generally by example. But it would have helped to have someone kind of rally them. And it's even like, that's the kind of spot where you're like, okay, Bobby, all the development that Bobby has had, all the growth in his character, and I think his patience, his temper, as his career has progressed, but particularly in Milwaukee. I mean, he got into foul trouble and he was pretty heated for a lot of that. He snapped his goggles. He threw them into the crowd. That's not the way that needed to be channeled. I do think the Bucks could have done with someone internally waking them up. Didn't come though, and that's a problem. Because as much as we like, I think it's safe to say we're not the biggest Marcus Smart fans. We could probably add at this point, we're not the biggest Grant Williams fans, because you can't be a fan of a team that isn't the Boston Celtics. We'll watch those guys play and particularly like them. But how they play, the way they talk, that's useful on your team.
Yeah. They fed
it's
up
not fun to watch.
The whole second half, they were
100%.
They were playing it up. I will say for the Drew offensive stuff, he is the only Buck who showed up in the second half. He ended the second half with 15 points, 4 assists, shot 6 for 11 despite missing all 3 of his threes. Nobody else scored in double figures in the second half. Giannis 4 for 16 for 8 points. Celtics were able to build a barrier. I thought he did get some lucks too that he just missed. I think no more gas in the tank.
3-point blank layups.
Yeah, which again, like, I'm not that sick over it because it didn't matter. 6 points wasn't swinging this, but it was tough to see Giannis just really, really run out. I mean, again, he had the masterclass in Game 6. That's the one.
He had a masterclass for like every other game.
The first 6 games. Well, he started off a little slow. 3, 4, 5, 6. I think.
Even in Game 1, he had a 20-point triple-double.
That's true. And they won. But yeah. Game 2, I think, was bad, and this one was pretty bad, all told. After an awesome start, but no one should be blaming Giannis. I think he clearly did enough for the Bucks to win this series, if not this game.
No, he's the single reason that the Bucks had a chance to win this series.
Yeah.
I mean, without Khris, whatever, this team goes as far as Giannis takes them. Giannis almost got it done completely by himself.
Yeah. Which
is just a testament to his greatness. I mean, we can't go an entire podcast without talking about that. Like, it's greatness. I know it finishes on a bad stat line. He had 20 rebounds for the second consecutive game, by the way, which is ridiculous. But like that, he almost had a triple-double in the first quarter. Like, dominance. That's all I can say.
When he checked out after 11 minutes, I believe it was 24 points the Bucks had, and he had scored and assisted on all of them.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of game we're talking about. And honestly, that was a big leveling up, his performance in the first half, because how I took it was he came out passing, like aggressively trying to find his teammates. He knew what we talked about in the previous game. It's like he could go and score 50, he could go and score 60. That on its own was not going to be enough. He had to get meaningful support from some teammates. I think that's a big part in why Brook was able to get some points early. Giannis found him with some great passes. There were good passes to Drew too, and he was looking for even guys who weren't making their shots at that point, like Grayson, like Pat. Like, that's a big part of his evolution, his understanding for that, and he executed it really well. The game falls apart. It has nothing to do with that. But again, really, really impressive to see. That's a new wrinkle in his game because, like, we spent all the end of the last game being like, okay, or the last pod talking about where's Giannis going to get help? Who's going to help Giannis? And Giannis essentially said, well, I'm going to help myself because I'm going to make sure these guys get some points early. And he did that, and yet the help couldn't sustain itself beyond that, which is the disappointment.
So there's going to be a lot of actual off-season content because that's where we are now for the Bucks. But who do you guys feel good about taking into next season?
Giannis.
Okay, that's one. We can cross him off. And this is gut check. This is not serious analysis of the season. I think.
How deep do you want to go? How many? Okay, go on, Drew.
I agree with you. Let's just go through them.
You think?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the offense to an extent is an issue. I know it's magnified with Khris out, but
yeah, I don't think we can like understate that. I mean, just for a really simple question for both of you, what do you think this season ends up at if Khris doesn't get that injury?
The finals?
Probably. I don't know. I don't like doing the thing where
I
don't like.
But
I'd like to avoid
you have to, but you have to if you're going to map into next season who we're valuing. Like Drew and what Drew brings to your team is very different when he is not the next guy and the only guy in terms of a supporting star. Like I don't. This is not this second year running where Drew's offense in the playoffs is not outstanding by any means, but I don't really have issues with his performance overall.
Yeah, I didn't mean to think. I didn't mean to imply it was a 50-50 for me. The offense gives me slight pause, but then I say yes.
So Giannis, Drew.
Yeah, Khris, yes.
Yes.
Does he only have one more year before the option?
I can check.
Yes.
I think I think we looked it up. It's going to get interesting.
He's going to opt into it.
Yeah, I think so.
Depending on timing of the spike, though, because when's the next TV deal?
I never know.
I don't know.
These ones are all boring anyway.
He might just be the wrong side of it.
Oh, these are all boring unless Dame tweeted he wanted to play with Giannis before the game.
He did. Let's go get Dame.
See what happens.
Did he?
There. Yeah.
He tweeted that before the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody asked him who he wants to play with. Yeah, he just said Giannis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's some circumstances where maybe. But those two guys, these are also the more boring ones because they're under contract too. It's not.
Let's go one because we're going to have different lists from now on.
Oh, are we ranking? I thought we were just going to
No, we don't have to rank. I think
go through.
The top 3 players are no-brainers all around. So if we want to go like individually, who would we keep from there? I don't know what kind of crossover we'll have.
It doesn't have to be in any order. Someone just name a name and we'll talk.
I'll just go down from contract value. I've got it up in front of me. Brook Lopez under contract for one more season.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think there needs to be an emphasis on figuring out a succession plan there this year. That needs to happen. It doesn't have to 100%. Be a 7'1" center, but they need to find someone else. Though. Yeah, that would be great. But I think
maybe
even
7'2".
I think you could find a perfect. You could find a perfect 4 to pair with Giannis, which I think they tried to do with Bobby. I think that's an okay answer as well, but they don't have it, and I don't think you want another bigger option. I don't know. They need a succession plan.
Your point.
7 foot.
Your point on that, I think, is which I would agree with. Ideally, you find a Brook replacement who will take you years beyond Brook's career playing similarly to Brook, and the Bucks can build their playing the same way. Chances are slim because there aren't too many players like that in the NBA to begin with.
Yeah.
So alternatively, you just got to find another strategy that works, is as consistent and as effective. And they didn't find that yet, particularly on the defensive end.
No, not Rudy Gobert,
Bud would have Rudy shooting like 5 threes a game.
He's on a supermax, so I think we're going to go now.
Jazz might buy him out. Who knows?
You said yes right away to Brook too, right? That's moot. We're good. Yeah. Grayson Allen.
Yes.
Oh, I would love to trade Grayson. I would love nothing more than to trade Grayson Allen.
I think year 2 of Grayson's different.
I'd be making phone calls.
I would be.
That's
I mean, what's the point? Like right now, his trade value is at an ultimate low.
Maybe teams are kind of dumb.
The Bucks also aren't a team in a position to just wait rounds and see when his trade value comes back up.
If it comes back up.
Yeah, that's it too. But his salary is not insignificant.
He is their tradable contract.
When you're a luxury tax team, it costs so much more. So if you're sitting there and you're like, he's not really doing it, and you're going to be squeezing other deals or other guys, it's like there's 2 guys we're probably going to talk about the next 2 who are going to come up. Like they have to figure out their futures this offseason. And if the question was, do you want those guys back, or do you want Grayson Allen's contracts to be something that's going to prevent you from bringing those guys back? I think that's a really simple one. So there may not be takers. I don't think it's a terrible contract. You could be right, Rohan, but I'd be making calls because ultimately he could have a very good second season and he could have a very good first round, and we could get right back to this kind of point next year. He could do the same and the Bucks crash out in the playoffs. And then it's 2 seasons of Giannis's prime, and you're into the latter stages of Chris's prime. You're into the latter stages of Brook's career, and part of that might be wasted on trusting Grayson Allen to hit shots that maybe he's not the guy who hits them at this point in the series.
Yeah, I think the boring outcome is just kind of giving him away for some picks to some team that, the OKC route, more or less. The exciting outcome is, between him and Hill, who's under contract for $4 million, you can get up to like $15 million in tradable salary there, which is interesting. We'll see. The Bucks cannot trade their first round pick right now, but can as soon as they make it. So Grayson Allen could be on the move come draft day. That would not surprise me. I know. I would like them to use the pick too. I would like them to use the pick to start.
The part of the problem, the hole they're in at this point, is because they're not developing. Look at the Celtics. Look at the guys that the Celtics have who are their key role players. You cannot get by forever on not being able to, or not even giving yourself chances to draft quality contributors. Whether it's a backup point guard or whether it's plans for what your front court might look like going forward, I really think the Bucks need to try and use a pick this year.
Literally anything. I would say best player available. I don't think there's any position would have helped them a ton.
That's true.
Any position would have helped them. I keep saying I love Christian Coloco from not looking very much as the big guy option, but like imagine if you had a Grant Williams a year or two from now under contract for another year or two, and then heading into restricted free agency. That would be nice. But I don't know. I don't think they have to, but I think they probably should move Grayson. Is how I feel.
I think how you worded the question was, which guys are we happy with coming back? Like, who are we comfortable with coming back? On that answer, I'm not comfortable with him coming back next year.
Agreed.
Like,
I would be happier.
You probably will, but
I don't know.
For sure.
I don't know if he will. We'll see. Pat Connaughton is next. He is got a player option for $5.7 million. I think fairly safe to say, like Bobby Portis on this list, he will be declining that option. I think this is obvious. It will be devastating if they lose. That should be their number one priority. I mean, they have to keep Pat at this point.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
There's no other option.
Like that's nuclear. I mean, we felt sick when they lost PJ, but this would be. I think it would feel worse.
Yes.
Because Pat is like he's 30 now. He's going to be in his age 30 season next year, versus PJ was going to be in year 36 or age 30, 35, 36. He's not Andre Miller, but no, it would feel really bad.
Haslam-esque.
Yeah.
No, absolutely have to keep Pat. I think we're all in agreement.
He's like, it's different to Bobby. It's a conversation that's going to come up, and the strength of feeling that Bobby generates is kind of there for different reasons. It's because of how Bobby puts himself out there, how he's front and center, how he's that much louder. Pat is kind of like a legacy piece of this team, though, as in already, but zooming out and beyond whatever this Bucks core ends up being. Like, Pat's here 4 years at this point. We've seen him kind of go through very different stages, become a very different player than he was when he first arrived. And yeah, I think he's better than ever. Like, you were the one who threw it out there, Ty, on the last pod. They should maybe be considering starting Pat for next year and looking at a very different role for him, and just trusting in a different construction of lineup. Like, rather than thinking, oh, well, Grayson's this sharpshooter. Like, Pat can be a sharpshooter. He's been that increasingly as his career has gone on in Milwaukee. But his all-around ability to give you solid defense, solid passing, solid rebounding, like all of that combined is just, it's a massive plus for the team.
He was basically within 1 percentage point of Allen in terms of 3-point percentage this season. So yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't look at him as a guy that you want to keep around. I know he's a little older, but he's just better, and I think he's way better in the playoffs. So that one is a no-brainer. I think that would probably be the biggest. That'll be like just heartbreaking and infuriating if they can't somehow find a way to keep him. They just have to. Bobby Portis. This might have to be a whole podcast. I don't even know if we can tackle this right now.
We should make it a whole. Let's.
It's going to be a whole podcast. This is thorny. This is thorny now.
The one thing I'll say now, if they lose Bobby, it comes down to the old asset management in terms of what they're going to have options to do. If they lose Bobby, they're not getting a player back unless other moves are made and there's kind of a more drastic kind of shift in how the dollars on the roster are spent on role players. You're like, it probably just hurts the team to lose Bobby. If it was as simple as, oh, don't pay Bobby and use the money and pay him to get someone else, I think that's, in that case, I'd be leaning that way. It's not that simple.
That's a very good point. It's a
Bobby's situation is he hasn't done himself favors overall in this playoffs. That's what I'll wrap up on.
But ironically, for a Mike Budenholzer coach team, it's a use it or lose it contract.
Yeah.
So
the Bucks have generally chosen to lose those contracts. They have a consistent track record of, do we just drop this thing and then we're in a worse spot, or do we pay it and deal with it later if we have to trade it or try and get something out of it another way? The Bucks generally decide to just lose it. So people should maybe brace themselves for that now, because I know how much that will hurt everyone, and it would be really sad to see Bobby go. But Bobby didn't put his stamp on these playoffs and this series in the way that I think was there for him to do. So we've been saying it for a few pods. It's like, if Bobby wants to stay long term and he wants his big payday, it's there for him. Just go grab it with both hands now. And he didn't do that. So that's going to create a tricky situation.
Yeah. I do think if it comes down to Bobby or Pat, it's going to be really tough for a lot of people. But there's a correct decision there that I think is going to may have to be made. We'll see. Maybe they'll choose neither, and it'll just be the Grayson Allen show, and we'll literally tear all our hair out. I skipped Serge Ibaka.
You say?
Yeah. I skipped Serge Ibaka because I was looking at next year.
I want him back.
You want Serge back?
Yeah, of course.
You want
on
to
the
get the
content
scarves
team
in the winter?
Or on the fashion team or on the...
I want him back as a player.
Cool.
All right.
Just don't bite on it, though.
Yeah.
Just leave it on the record.
I'm fine with that.
I mean, no, I don't think so. No, not even for Pittman. I had to think about it. He's had a respectable career. Well, Rohan was so convincing.
It is a respectable career. It's likely at its end. Yeah.
Speaking of George Hill.
No.
Yeah, that's tough. Is it guaranteed $4 million?
Yes.
Is that total? I thought it wasn't fully guaranteed. Is that next year? It's not fully guaranteed.
It's makeup money, I think.
They're gonna have to do it to him again, man.
Yeah, he's guaranteed $4 million next year.
You do hate to see it, but they've got to do it to him again. I don't know if they will.
Again,
they will.
He did it to himself.
Yeah. Well, I
want him gone purely because
I know.
He can't be a crutch.
Yeah. I'm worried that I'll skip ahead a couple names. Javon Carter. Would love to see Javon back.
Javon should be back.
Well, I mean, I hope. I think the Bucks would have interest. I think, not the best way to galvanize a guy to take a small deal, although he might just not have options, but just not playing him at all over the last 5 games.
Options.
Yeah, I think he should too. We'll see if he does. I mean, historically, they really haven't been there for him. And he's played roughly this well a couple of years ago for a season too. It would be great to bring him back. I would love to see him in an extended role with the team. I think he is a guy that if you could do the Bobby/Pat situation, figure out ways to keep him around, he could be very helpful. I think he's shown more than enough. He should be like prioritized, not the right word, but he should be one of the first guys who's on the roster. Probably the third guy who's on the roster who's expiring that they're like, how can we figure this out? Thanasis.
Yes.
Player option.
Yes, absolutely.
Does he opt out to cash in?
Yeah. Sign him to a full max.
I actually do wonder if he'll just go play with Costas or something.
No, I don't think so.
No.
We'll see.
I will say this for the third year in a row. He should have a role.
I think he has the right role. Jordan Wara. Do you have more? Yeah, not a chance.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It really is fine. We'll have lots of off-season.
No to Wara.
It's sad because this was his this season, not this series. He obviously wasn't going to play, but this season was his chance to make the Bucks prioritize him. But we know that every dollar is X more dollars because of the luxury tax. I can't see the logic of paying him above this very low market rate contract he's been on to not be a rotation guy even with Khris out. So I just think it's pretty obvious.
He's a good scorer for a bad team. That's been his trajectory. He may well do that.
Yeah, I think so.
Bucks fans next year would be like, oh look, if he'd had the opportunity, he'd score 18 points for us. It's like no, he'd get absolutely flamed defensively.
Yeah.
So,
well, the issue with him is I think you could live with that to an extent. But he hasn't been able to harness that same volume scoring in a role player position.
Yeah.
If he's not taking 20 shots, he's not on that super high points per minute or whatever scoring. So that's really the issue, I think. But yeah, I agree. I think,
Olympics, Jordan Wara could never work in Milwaukee because you never have that role.
It's very Christian Wood.
So he's going to Houston?
Somewhere else first, then Houston. Maybe
Probably.
maybe straight to Houston. That would make sense. I could absolutely see Warwick getting like a 3-year, $20 million contract that people are like, oh, is that really? Not right now, but after another year. That's exactly what happened.
Oh, in the future. In the future, sure.
Yeah. He goes to whatever the equivalent to that New Orleans team was, or Detroit or wherever, and oh my, this guy's putting up 22 a game for the last 16 games of the season. This is crazy. Oh, we got to sign him for our MLE.
You could get bigger too. It's kind of it's unfair on that guy, and particularly after talking about losing the game 7 to the Celtics, string him up. But Terry Rozier to the Hornets, it's like he's a guy. It's like if he can just have the right year at the right time, then he can go and take his payday for somewhere where he's going to be like much less relevant, but he's going to make a lot more money.
Terry's been good.
Sure,
he's aged better than the other real and
Terry's
fake contracts.
He's better. I'm not saying he's the same level, but just
yeah.
He's a player of that mold, the top end. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that one is pretty wild. Wesley Matthews.
Yes.
I think there's no downside if he's willing to take another, smallish deal. Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't go to the Lakers again.
Yeah, I think he's probably learned that lesson.
He does that again.
I sure hope so.
That'd be great. I do. It's tough because it's going to be hard for him to have another season this good, just because it's such a good season. But it would be great to have him and need less from him this time around, or next time around, I should say.
He's holding up in spite of his age. Like he's the reverse of George Hill, where it's like he was actually asked about as much as like anyone outside of Giannis and Drew in a physical sense on the team, and he was up to the challenge. So deserves a lot of credit for that at his age. I'd have no qualms about bringing him back.
Yeah. Luka Vildoza.
Yes. Absolute hard.
He's what is he? He's got like a partial guarantee next year, I think.
It might even be non-guaranteed.
I'm pulling it up.
It is non-guaranteed.
Yeah, it is. He and Tucker both. I'd say keep both.
Absolutely.
Let's see them try to actually work a point guard who can create offense in some ways into their rotation, even if he has limitations.
Could actually, it could be fun.
He's an interesting archetype.
The way he moves is so interesting. I love it.
Yeah,
he's just so weirdly bouncy with his dribble. I love every second that he has the ball in his hand.
Serge robbed us of like half the total time we could have gotten. I'm still mad about it.
Is that why you don't want to bring Serge back? Because it'll take away from
Yes, it is. Also, I mean, if you let Serge and Warwick go, and that opens up 2 spots right there, and that's before you even talk about Hill, one of Bobby and Pat, potentially, who knows, and Grayson. I don't see why you wouldn't keep these 2 guys around on their minimums. Like, you need to fill out the roster at a certain point, so I would say, I think both. I mean, Tuck didn't really get to show much, but he showed a ton with the Herd. And Luka in his couple minutes was really exciting. So I think I would not see the reason to not keep both around.
Do we know
Damian Lillard vetting in once he secures the buyout from Portland?
Based on some of the trades Joe Cronin has made, maybe the Bucks could actually get Damian Lillard.
I mean, if that's where he want to go, if Milwaukee's where he wants to go, I don't see why Portland couldn't make it happen.
That would be fun.
You guys are just going to let me eat dead air for that?
I was daydreaming.
We're just thinking about it.
I was just daydreaming, okay? Would it be really hard to lose the salary necessary to get Damian Lillard? Yes. Would it be worth it? I mean, he was banged up this year. Didn't have a good year. Assuming he's healthy now.
He's resting up for his year with Giannis.
Holy crap, would that be fun. I mean, Steph and Giannis is obviously the best possible current star pairing, but Dame and Giannis would be pretty damn close.
It's next best.
Gobert.
Stop with What is with you and Gobert?
What is with that?
I don't understand the Gobert thing.
I don't want Rudy Gobert here.
I don't think they're even going to trade him. I think they're cowards. I think they're just going to run it back until Don leaves.
Rudy Gobert is good.
Yeah, I just don't
terrible in
want to root
Milwaukee,
for him.
though. It doesn't make any sense.
On a vet min, yeah.
What you can't do? You can't. He's on a supermax. You can't just say, "Well, what if he's on a vet?"
We're talking about Dame to Milwaukee. Anything's possible.
Well, Dame tweets he wanted to play with Giannis. Of course, we're going to talk about it.
Rudy said the same thing.
When?
He said something good about Giannis.
Wow.
There aren't many players left. As much as they've tried, there aren't many players left at this point who haven't said something good about Giannis.
So happy for Giannis in Milwaukee, man.
Wow, what a ringing endorsement.
Wish I could be on that sort of team. That part I added. That part's fake.
Yeah, I figured. Lindell and Mamu, I think, are the last two, unless I missed someone.
Give me Lindell. Sorry, Mamu.
No to Lindell. That's what I was going to ask. Do we know, is Mamu's 2-way 1 or 2 year?
I'm never sure.
I don't know how there's not greater transparency on this.
It's the Bucks.
I would want Mamu kept around. It's just how they do that.
I mean, the worst case Ontario, you can always just vet minimum. They're going to have some spots.
Mm-hmm.
I think you keep Mamu for sure. I think maybe you roster one and continue to 2-way another. I mean, you could always sign another 2-way if it's expired, if the player is amenable.
I don't really care.
I don't get the Lindell thing with Bodie.
I think Lindell's could be better NBA player than Mamu.
Mamu's ceiling is higher. Lindell's floor might be higher.
Yeah, but
Mamu is so weird.
Mamu is really weird. Yeah,
that's honestly, that is the appeal. Like, not just from
I know you love it.
It's fun to not just that's my kind of player, but also that is something that ends up having value if the guy develops his skills. Like in the NBA, there is a trend towards the more unique you are, if you can get the most out of your skills, your value is a lot higher.
Maybe Jokic, according to John Horst.
Points, though.
No, I wish, but
I wish too. I mean, he showed a lot this year. I think they should keep
Lindell doesn't bleed points.
Lindell is good, but small.
I don't know. I prefer defense.
I don't get it. I've never got it with Lindell. We had an argument about this before. I don't see it.
I also think if you are able to retain Javon Carter, Lindell's. It's just harder to have two guys like that, I think.
Lindell's 24 too. That's the other thing. Mamu's 22.
Yeah, I think Mamu should be the priority out of the two of them. I would not mind if they 2-wayed both, fine, sure. If they vet into both, I wouldn't expect that to happen. I would expect one at most. And I think Mamu makes them. I think he's been their priority out of the two for sure. It's a little surprising they didn't sign him, honestly, at the end of the year. But it's probably smarter the way they did it because then you keep Tuck and Mamu in the organization going into the offseason.
Do you think any Celtics fans who tuned in to see how sad we are still listening as we talk about Lindell and Mamu?
I feel like they probably... I don't know. I wonder when it would have gotten boring for them. For sure when we started the roster thing. No, you know what? Probably when we said they obviously should keep Khris, Giannis, Drew. I think they were probably, maybe if you get that far, you're like, oh, are they going to tear down their whole team now? And then we said, no, they probably shouldn't. Then they were probably like, oh, okay, I'm going to go listen to someone more reactionary.
Which one do you trade for Dame?
Whoever Giannis / Portland picks.
I think it's whoever Giannis picks.
Probably. Well,
I think in theory it has to be whoever Portland picks. That's how trades work.
Yeah.
I know, but you don't do the trade if it's not the guy Giannis picks.
I don't think the trade's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think.
I know we all know that, but I
do
think
we know
it's
that?
Yeah, we do.
I'm 90-10. I'm 90-10 right now.
I'll take those odds. I like those odds.
10 is quite a lot.
10's a ton. I need something to believe in.
Believe in Giannis.
Yeah, I know. That's the obvious answer.
So we believe in whoever Giannis picks. The trade's in Portland.
No, I think they probably just figure it out. I do think they... I guess we should say Bud as the other one.
Yes.
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 But he should be better as well.
He has to be better. But just to touch on that for a second, because there's going to be lots of that. I know when we start doing mailbags...
There's a lot of promote Darvin going on
tons
right now.
of questions. Well, I hope Darvin is gone. This is one thing I would like to say, because I never get this. I see a lot of Bucks fans, they're like, no, I don't want Darvin to go. I don't want Charles Lee to go. That's part of the NBA journey. Those guys have earned the right. Like, they helped the Bucks to win a championship. They helped the players to develop to this point. So if they get a chance to go and be head coaches, I say good for them. I would like them to get that chance. That's on Bud to build up a staff. It's actually something Bud has been really good at. You know, before there was Darvin, before there was Charles Lee, there was Quinn Snyder and Kenny Atkinson. You know, like, so Bud has been through that before. That's part of the natural cycle. And I hope those guys finally get their opportunity, because particularly in Darvin's case, he's long overdue. So I'd like to see that. On Bud, I think what always gets lost here, Bud is a flawed coach. We all know this. The flawless coach does not exist. Does not exist. And I see names get thrown out there, and I'm like, that's a coach that's just got flamed by that fan base for an entire year for their particular weaknesses or their decisions. The perfect coach doesn't exist. There are not many coaches in the NBA that maximize their roster in the way that Bud generally does. I know right now it doesn't feel like that. And this is a bad series. You're not going to find me disputing that. He also won an NBA championship. And I just, I don't think we can't get to a point where people just assume that's what it is because Giannis is here. The Bucks had Kareem before, and they only got one of these. Lots of great teams, lots of great coaches. They may only get one. It was always a possibility. It's why last year was so special. You can't assume it. You've got to put yourself in a position where every year you're going to give a great chance. I think they had that chance, and then their odds shrunk dramatically with Khris out. And then there's more scrutiny on Bud. There's more to ask of all the other players, and none of them could hold up on that. Like the Bucks, based on how the roster is constructed, based on the whole situation, they're not in a position where they can afford any of the key pieces to fall and more weight to fall than everyone else. I don't think that's news to us. We would have liked to see them battle through it, but I don't think it's news. So for me, like, this doesn't wipe out that Bud won a championship. Did Bud win a championship because of Giannis? Yes. Every coach wins a championship because they have like the best player. Who is the coach who takes like 15 scrubs and goes and wins a championship? It doesn't exist. All of these coaches are flawed. All of them are flawed. Ime Udoka is not the perfect coach. That may rear its head in these playoffs. Like, there are not many guys around the league who are better. It doesn't mean that Bud is perfect. It doesn't mean we're not all going to scream about all the things he does wrong for years and years. But we've been through, you know, what a different coach with some of these players looks like. If you made that decision, you get that one wrong, the whole thing could come crashing down so much faster than anyone's prepared for. And I don't think that should be like overlooked.
I think the context too of they lost to the team who I think many are going to pick to represent the East in the finals, and you know, probably a significant portion of those people will say they'll probably win the finals. I think I haven't thought about it that much. I think they have a really good chance to win the finals from here. I think Golden State has looked all right with some flaws. We'll see what happens with Dallas Phoenix tonight as we record. And the Heat, Kyle Lowry's banged up. I just don't know if they're going to have enough to get. I don't know if they're going to score at all. I think, you know, if KD and Giannis couldn't do it single-handedly against this Boston team, I don't think Jimmy Butler will be able to, although he's had a great playoffs. But, you know, to lose against that team, who, again, at least possible / likely, they'll go to / win the finals without Khris in 7 games, you know, without all the context, it's not that bad of a result, and it's certainly an understandable one. I don't think the Bucks need to tear down everything they've been doing. I do think there were some significant flaws and problems that were shown that do have to be addressed around the main core here. I think that's the biggest takeaway. And on top of that, 3 of the 4 guys who make the most, which I'm not trying to rag on them for making money, but it's asset allocation, right? It matters. Drew, Khris, Giannis, Brook, 3 of the 4 guys are, you know, I mean, Giannis ages too, but 3 of the 4, especially Brook, it's just tough to waste a prime season. We just don't know how many more of all 4. Of all 4, yeah. Is Drew 30 now?
Yeah,
I believe so.
Okay, so yeah, they're all 30 plus except Giannis. I think that's almost where it sits worst for me, is you just don't know how many more seasons where, you know, those 3 in particular will all be able to play it. I mean, this wasn't one of them, clearly, but it's just tough. And I do think over the next year or 2, they need to find someone else who can throw in that group of, the most important, the highest paid players who is younger than those three. And that's just going to be really, really hard to do.
They have Luka on their team, Ty.
Mamu.
Oh,
2 years is seriously the max for Brook. Like, given his age, given the miles on the clock, I think that's being realistic. Doesn't mean that he may not be with the Bucks longer than that, but he could be there when he's 37 and be fine as a backup big, the kind they've lacked for all his years as the main big.
Except for the one where they had Robin.
Well, they had his brother, of course. But
they could get a couple seconds younger if they go get Robin.
That's true.
No, sorry, go ahead, Adam.
No, I just think that is, like, it is unavoidable. Like, you've got to, maybe this is the offseason where you just have to be proactive in, I don't think you want to touch any of those four. Like, it was a conversation, I know, when Brook was injured, but I think Brook late in the season, Brook when he came back, also, like, it's easy to lose sight of it in this game, even though in spite of everything, the Celtics only scored 109 points. It feels like they scored 160 points.
Yeah.
The Bucks defense in the playoffs was fantastic. Yep. It was back to what we know it can be. And the difference between what it was all season and that is Brook Lopez. We all know that. He makes Giannis better. He makes Drew better. He makes all of the parts better when he's there. So that's the question to be solved. You may need to make difficult decisions even on pieces you like below them in order to work that out. But the pieces below them are not that great, as we've learned. So it's a tough spot.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the offense for me was the huge issue this series. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Celtics scored 110 or above once, the game 4 in Milwaukee that they won. Otherwise, 89, 109, 101, 116, 107, 108, and then tonight 109. Like 109 should not be this, oh my God, there's no way we're going to score 110 points. I mean, they did that like every game, it felt like, in the regular season. It's what they had to do. Obviously, you have Khris then, but you also have Bobby Portis shooting a lot better, Grayson Allen shooting a lot better, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's what if there's a way to find someone that you feel like you can trust offensively in the playoffs this offseason, and adding Khris is one, but on top of that I think would be the ultimate win. I don't know how you're going to do it, but that would be a great feeling.
Who do you guys want, like, in terms of off-season?
That's what I can't do yet. That's what I know. I don't know.
I don't even know who. I don't know who the options are.
Yeah, I don't have anything yet. We can't.
That starts now.
Well, I wasn't going to research this during. I mean, I guess I could have in the second half. There wasn't much to watch, but
we're actually as much as we joked about the draft. Like last year, we had 3 days between the draft. We actually probably will do some drafts. Well, maybe I should say, but that's where Jordan and I might come in. So maybe win at 6th.
Yeah,
we'll do some draft.
I'm going to do some draft.
Well, you're welcome because your co-host doesn't seem to be interested, so you can come join us, Ty.
I know my faults as a human being, and draft content is one of them.
You know what? No, you know what you should do instead? Just stake territory on the Bucks will never use the picks island. Just come up with a big list of guys they could trade. They could trade the picks for. That can be your draft prep.
That's a good one.
So we'll have prospect big boards, and you'll have like what can you get with the 23rd overall pick or 24th or whatever it is big board.
That's great planning because, you know, inevitably then if we all dive in and we've got all these draft content, we've done all these guys we love, at least on draft night we can then hand it straight over to our trade correspondent.
Yeah.
We'll have all the options ready for us. So
you guys don't want to give me the trade.
In action.
Oh.
Yeah, is Rohan the right guy, though, to drop the list?
It's too late.
It's going to be Rudy Gobert and Damian Lillard.
Right guy, right time.
It's too late. This is perfect. This is perfect for me. I will say one guy.
Yeah, who's your guy? Who?
Otto Porter.
Oh.
I wanted him last year but I think
he's cooked. Also,
Did you guys watch Warriors Grizzlies?
No.
Oh, that explains that.
He's kind of busy. I mean, if he's really good, why would they?
Yeah,
let
he's
him
been
go?
good.
Then why would they?
He's been the linchpin of their small lineups.
Oh, then I think they'll probably just keep him now.
Linchpin? Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen so many takes on either side of this.
I mean, I have seen some of that series. I have not watched all of it.
I mean, it's over.
Yeah, I know, but listen, the second round it's all over for me. I don't know if you know this. The NBA, not to be like Jordan after the Bucks won a championship, where it's like, oh, the NBA is just finished forever. But the NBA season is kind of over.
I try to watch as much basketball as I can to get a good.
He had a good series.
Listen, some of us also host a Brewers podcast on the network, so move on. There's another thing I have to do.
Well, some of us also don't.
Otto Porter's playoff numbers are not good.
He shot really well against Memphis, but yeah, 6 points, four boards. He would be helpful. It'd be nice to have a wing like that. They tried like 4 times.
If he shot really well against Memphis, so for 10 games in the playoffs, he has splits of 38.3%, 31%, and 75%.
And that would have been amazing for the Bucks.
He shot 43.8% from deep against Memphis.
What was his first round then?
Must have been really bad.
It must have been really bad.
He was also in and out.
Oh yeah, he missed game 7
Yeah.
or 6. They finished in 6, right? It's game 6.
Yeah,
Oh, so he had a good 5 games.
out of 6.
I feel comfortable sticking with my Otto Porter take.
He's younger than I thought too. I mean, I would be
He's
fine
younger.
with it. If they signed him, I'd be fine with it.
He's older than I thought. He's about to turn 29.
I thought he was in his 30s already somehow, which doesn't make sense because I know he just got drafted a few years ago. Let's not. Why are we doing Otto Porter right now? Game 7 just ended.
I said one guy. I had named one guy. You guys can't even name a guy. You're flaming my guy.
I can name a lot of guys. The ones who played in the game 7 we just watched. That's what I'm focused on right now.
Anything good on underwater stuff? Reddit?
I haven't been able to get into submechanophobia yet today. That's what I'm going to do after this pod. That's for sure. I was reading this crazy article about these cave divers in Norway 3 days ago.
Oh,
I'm
God,
not
that
kidding.
scares it.
No,
that scares the shit out of me.
A couple passed away. They had to go get the bodies. It was pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really have I gone on my ocean rant to you guys?
You just don't. Is the ocean
scary?
Sus. Yeah, it sucks.
No, the ocean is the most. It's scarier than space.
We know less about it than space.
I think 99 or 97% of the oceans are unexplored.
Whenever I hear that, I just think like, do we have a reason to?
Yeah, who knows what the fuck's down there?
Fair.
So you're taking the ocean or the sun?
I'm taking the ocean.
No, give me the sun. That's crazy.
Rohan just continues to underrate the sun.
I take the sun.
The sun is super underrated to Rohan.
No, the sun. I'd take the sun. I'm kidding. No, but the oceans. Like, I would rather I don't know what I'm going to say, but you will not catch me on a ship in the middle of the ocean. No chance.
I've never been on a ship in the ocean. I've flown over it. That's about it.
I've been in the Pacific Ocean, technically. It's a beach in California. That counts, right?
I stepped in it, but I never went deep. I don't swim, so it's especially frightening to me.
You don't know how to swim?
No. I don't float.
I'm going to teach you how to swim this summer.
Everyone does float, though.
Everyone does float.
Listen, I know people say
I'm not
this.
a strong swimmer, but
unless you're 100% muscle,
float.
you will float.
I am pretty close to 100% muscle, actually. It's a common misconception. No, I don't know. I tried. They put me in the baby position or whatever, and then they're like, close your eyes. This is a lifeguard when I was like 6. Puts me, he's like, all right, you just sit like this and you'll float. I was like, all right, bet. I close my eyes. I open my eyes. I'm at the bottom. And I got out of the pool. I was like, never again. I don't float. I wasn't built for this.
The perfect metaphor for the Bucks and Game 7.
If you have any strong ocean takes, hit up Ty. No underwater stuff. If you're also scared of the ocean, hit me up. We can start a support group. If you hate Otto Porter, hit up Adam.
I think it's pretty clearly time to wrap this one up.
Which is what I'm doing, Ty.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing. I'm saying hit everyone up so we can say thank you for listening to this episode of the Eurostep Podcast Network. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening. Thank you. No, just thank you to everyone who's engaged in our content throughout the entire season. Truly from the bottom of my heart, I do appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic season for GSPN. It's been a fantastic season of growth, and we are hoping to take this momentum into the off season going forward because we're not going to stop coming at you guys with content. But thank you, truly thank you to everyone who supported us along the way.
Yeah.
This has been a fantastic season, and I'm glad we could share it with you.
Please stay tapped in. We know it's not going to be as exciting for a while, but we'll be covering all things Bucks, free agency, the draft, Damian Lillard, Otto Porter, the big
Rudy
names,
Gobert.
the big names that people are interested in. And we'll be covering the Brewers, too, over at Cruising for a Bruising. So if, like me, you've just been a little bit too locked in, now you're going to catch some more Brewers games, you can tap into that podcast for more Milwaukee sports coverage.
You can indeed.
Thanks to everyone. And again, we joked about the start, but thanks to you guys, sincerely. Thanks to Jordan. We haven't had Jordan on so much during the playoffs. He's had a hectic work schedule. But you will see and hear from Jordan plenty throughout the offseason, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Are we right around the year, actually, now? Like,
we passed it a little bit ago now, yeah.
Like, just a little bit. Because remember, the season ran later last year. I think we're right around the year mark. It's been pretty amazing. And you consider that we got a championship run to start it. We've had a really strong season. And yeah, as Rohan said, I think we're going from strength to strength on all fronts. Lots of great things to come, some of which we may not even know about. Jordan's tweeting about big things coming, and I feel like I need to talk to him and be like, hey, remember the 2027 timeline? But really, really big stuff to come. So yeah, thanks for all of the support everywhere, and just stay tuned in because there's all your Bucks off-season needs will be covered here. There'll be all sorts of other weird and wonderful fun. And yeah, we've got Brewers content at Cruising for a Bruising, and look, there's not a whole lot we're going to have coverage in the medium term.
Oh, we're not over a year. We're 6 days away.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
May 21, 2021.
Why did I think it's
we
June?
rolled it out. I thought it was April.
You thought it was April
June
because it was before the playoffs.
Yeah.
Oh my, no, I thought like currently it's June.
Oh well, that's
that clicks for you. We have a very nice review. We have a couple actually.
Okay.
So this is it's bad timing. It's for no, I don't think so. Unfortunately, no. It's very heartfelt. It's from a Jason spelled the same as Jason Tatum. I don't think it's Jason Tatum, but from Jason in Phoenix. The headline is Bucks fan in Phoenix. It's a 5-star review, of course. I'm a Bucks fan from Wisconsin that recently relocated to Phoenix and was lucky enough to attend Game 5 of the finals. After experiencing the joy of victory, I soon realized I had few Bucks fans to talk to the game about. I found the Eurostep podcast the next day and have been listening ever since. I love the analysis, perspective, and humor that everyone brings to the pod. My favorite moment still is when Rohan had a special message for CJ McCollum after the Bucks won the championship. Thank you all for the content and for calming my nerves after stressful playoff losses. Bucks in 6 from Jason in Phoenix. That's a wonderful review.
Yeah, that's a deep cut now.
Yeah. I do love when people share a moment and we're all like, oh yeah. That's fun. Thanks,
I'm not going to repeat it, but that was awesome.
Yeah, because now you have to be careful because you don't want to offend Dame.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
no,
now we have
CJ's gone. CJ's a new one.
I think they're still friends.
They're still buddies.
Yeah, we have to be nice to CJ now. That's the unfortunate.
That's true.
Could you imagine it comes down to it? It's like, oh, Dame might go to Milwaukee. He's like, no, that guy Rohan really said mean things about my guy CJ, so I chose not to.
Oh my goodness! Shout out to you, Jason. That's incredible. Thank you for that review.
CJ.
Shouts to CJ as well.
I love his wine.
If you want to send me some wine, CJ, be my guest. I don't know where else I was going with that.
Pod random.
Yeah. Oh, I thought. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, pod random. Everyone, check out gspnstore.com, and we will talk to you next time.